My name is Kevin Duckworth, and as I often say, my career began in the city, in London, or to be more accurate, in a pub in Liverpool called the Carousel. 30 years ago I set off from this pub and my Penny Lane bedsit on a whim, set off for London with a car and a sleeping bag. Through a ridiculous set of events I ended up getting a job in the city the following day and remained in the financial world for most of my life. I recently finished a lecture tour with Fred Olsen Cruise Lines on board their largest ship Balmoral on a cruise to Italy, which went well, with audiences of approaching 200 for each talk, which was a fantastic experience, and I'm now working hard to find opportunities to present my talks in dry land. I've put together a number of talks with accompanying photos, plus an after-dinner talk that shares my experience and some of the characters I've come across. Some of the talks are specific to people who have to sell or clients who want to know how to work with their advisors, but I would say there are 5 talks that have the broadest appeal, which I can briefly describe now, including the talk I did recently, which was entitled "Has Money Killed the Beautiful Game? Football and Cash." Has greed replaced loyalty? Is the spirit of the amateurs dead? Are things getting out of hand in football? Every time I give this talk I feel if I don't say money has spoilt football that the audience is going to rush the stage, but it's not as straightforward as that. Money has had a positive as well as a negative impact on our national game, and I take a nostalgic look at the past and a critical look at the future of the beautiful game. It's a personal look at some of the ways in which money has influenced a sport that's close to many of our hearts. Now, as some of you know, I've been seriously ill, although hopefully in better shape now. It really is extraordinary how life can twist and turn. A year ago, not long after my cancer ops, I went on a P&O cruise with my family, and one of the places we visited was Florence, quite beautiful as I'm sure you know. One particular photograph I took was an ornate door with an old-fashioned bicycle in front of it, and in fact I had this blown up as a large print framed on my office wall. Well, on the cruise with Balmoral just recently, I visited Florence again, and I couldn't resist having another look at this spot. And would you believe it, it was identical, but the bicycle was now facing the other way. A friend of mine is completely convinced that I've photoshopped this scene and turned the bike around using my computer. Now, the reason I mention this is to illustrate that we really don't know what's around the corner. If someone told me when I took that original photograph a year ago that I would revisit that spot on my own 12 months later whilst working on a ship, I would have laughed out loud. I simply could not have imagined it. In the same way that I could not have envisaged standing up and doing stand-up comedy in front of 500 people, which is what I agreed to do in a moment of madness on that first cruise, which in fact led to my now speaking opportunities. I've just been asked to speak at Ipswich Town Football Club. It's their business Christmas lunch at Portman Road. I went there recently for the first time in over 30 years, and again would never have imagined returning in order to speak at an event. Without getting too heavy, I think it's so easy to get in a routine and a bit of a rut, both in our personal and our business lives. My advice to myself, never mind anyone else, is to try not to. Do something daft now and again. You never know where it might lead. Thank you very much. The city, should we love it or hate it? I was recruited into the city in London over 30 years ago after arriving the day before with a Ford Cortina and a sleeping bag, and remained within the financial world for over 25 years. I tell how I was recruited and how I was taught to sell. It's a fascinating world of larger-than-life characters and gives an insight into what makes the city tick. There's no doubt that many of us feel that the city has been a great deal of anger with the casino culture, due to the huge bonuses for the favoured few, and in July last year the city mayor Nick Anstey, not Boris, that's a different post, quoted from Michael Lewis's book Liar's Poker about working as a bond salesman at the investment bank Salomon Brothers in the 1980s. He writes, "I considered him my best customer. He was easily my favourite. He trusted me, I think, even though we'd known each other for only 4 months. Here I was selling him something I probably wouldn't touch with a barge pole if there hadn't been such glory in it for me. I knew it was awful, but I feel much worse about it now than I did at the time. After thinking it over for maybe a minute, he bought the $86 million worth of Olympia and York shares." He's writing about making a sale in the interests of his business, a sale which will net his investment bank $2 million. which is emphatically not in the best interests of his customer. This book is about Wall Street 25 years ago, and it paints a rather ugly picture of short-termism, greed and unethical behaviour. As Lewis writes, "It was the job of people like me to make up reasons, to spin a plausible yarn, and it's amazing what people will believe." I used to cold call into a similar investment bank near Victoria Station and visited the place often. It just reeked of success and aggression. The city mayor went on to say that this is not what any of us wants the city to look like, but is the culture too ingrained to prevent this? Have attitudes changed in any way, or is still a culture of competitive greed? My talk may help you make your mind up. Are you being scammed right now? This is the story of how financial criminals want your money, and the frankly astonishing lengths they will go to make that happen. The amounts of cash are eye-watering. On the day he confessed, Bernie Madoff in New York had uncashed cheques made out to him personally in his desk, totalling $173 million. He confessed to his sons, by the way, not to the regulators. They were still in blissful ignorance. Closer to home, and in my hometown, a pensioner lost £750,000 and died in poverty, a victim of one of the most common and growing frauds in the UK. This particular fraud is very personal and very nasty. I help you to be alert to this and to other scams that can be devastating if you're caught unawares. Another talk is entitled as "The West Had Its Day, The Rise of China." Hardly a day goes by without another astonishing news item that illustrates the meteoric rise of China. Those of us of a certain age who associate China with marching communist hordes and cheap plastic goods need to think again. It's estimated by economists that China's economy will overtake that of the United States as early as 2020. It was announced just recently that the Chinese plan to build an airport that's larger than the island of Bermuda. There are no adequate superlatives to cover the development of China, and we need perhaps to understand how this will impact on us in the West. Should we be frightened? Let's see. In recent years, I've run a business that finds top financial advisors for clients who find it difficult to know who to trust. I've listened to hundreds of talks that involve the world of money, and it's fair to say that most of them have either been very technical and dry, or have been selling something, and if I've been very unlucky, both. So I've devised a series of talks on how money impacts on our lives and our world that are hopefully a little lighter, and again hopefully a touch more entertaining. Now another talk is entitled "Are You Being Served?" Not many of us feel that customer service is satisfactory or even acceptable a lot of the time. What drives us mad about customer service? Does your heart sink when that friendly female and completely fake voice asks us to choose from the following 8 options? Does it raise your blood pressure when major companies do not even have a phone number on their website in case you speak to a real person by mistake? When was the last time a company made you actually feel valued, special even? I talk about the financial world and other industries here and highlight some of the most common customer service crimes and what to do about them.